So good morning, everybody. I'm here to tell you about the latest information on the DAISY standard, which is a NISO standard about digital talking books. And I can take a little bit from Bill's presentation on EPUB, and I also want to give credit for several of my slides to George Kirscher from the DAISY Consortium, who has supplied me with lots of information. So what is the DAISY Consortium? It's international. It's an international nonprofit that develops, maintains, and promotes the digital accessible information system standards, and there's a number of those. It's managed by a board made up of representatives from its members, and it's been around since May 1996. It was created by all of the various talking book libraries in different countries to make a transition from analog books to digital talking books around the time the web was becoming to the forefront. And what is in a DAISY book is a number of digital files. So this slide shows that it's an audio file that can contain a human narration of part or all of the source text, a marked up file containing some of the actual text, and then a synchronization file to show where does the text match with the audio file. And then there's a navigation control, which enables the user to move smoothly and synchronize these two as they go along and read the book. I think DAISY has primarily been occupied with, or historically occupied with, making books available to the blind and print disabled. But I think we all know that as more and more information is available online and materials are made in primarily digital form, and that's how we're accessing them now, that there are a lot of applications for these materials beyond simply the blind, although, of course, we would recognize that making material available to the blind and print disabled is an important human aspect of publishing. But you could think of different applications such as, we're all getting older. Wouldn't there be an alternative way to consume information in addition to actually reading text, listening to it? Or people who learn in different ways. So learning disabled people having an alternative way to consume text that's being published in native digital form. So there's all kinds of uses for these digital reading files beyond simply one. So to say a little bit about the DAISY standard, historically, this is the original DAISY standard created by the DAISY Consortium around 1996, and then they had a second version. When they were putting together their third version of DAISY, they decided to work with NISO and make the standard an ANSI NISO standard. This work was official in 2002, and then it was revised again in 2005, and a number of organizations were responsible for that beyond the DAISY Consortium, the National Library Service for the Blind and Physically Handicapped, and other North American organizations. NISO named the DAISY Consortium to be the official maintenance agency for the standard, and that's a typical activity for NISO. We'll name a maintenance agency to look after any questions that come in, be a responsive party, and deciding, the maintenance agency also has a major role in deciding the life cycle of the standard. Does it need to be revised? What's the recommendation for moving it forward as the landscape changes? So in 2005, as I mentioned, it was reviewed, and recently, and I'll get to the reasons why, DAISY 3 was actually reaffirmed by NISO voting pool, and then that reaffirmation was accepted by ANSI just this year. So DAISY 3 is still alive and well, and there are some reasons for that, which I'll be explaining in subsequent slides. So in 2008, the DAISY Consortium, the maintenance agency, started to make plans that the standard should be revised. There's all kinds of activity going on in publishing and the web and the EPUB, and recommended to NISO, and NISO committees and members approved the moving forward for a new working group for DAISY. And so this working group, which is listed on this slide, undertook its work in 2009 and 2010, and it is quite international. I probably can't read the type, but George Kirscher, the Secretary General of DAISY, was the chair for this group. The technical chair is Marcus Skilling, who, as Bill mentioned, is also the CTO of IDPF, so these two were really instrumental. But then a number of international people from Australia, Canada, we've got Denmark, and then other industry professionals, O'Reilly, Microsoft, and education such as Cal State. So this group was working through 2009, 2010, and what they decided to do was break up the revision of DAISY 3, or Z39.86, into two parts. And they really premiered themselves during this revision with Part A, which was an authoring and interchange framework. So they worked on defining XML markup languages that would represent different kinds of information resources. So again, not restricted to books, but all kinds of information resources that would need to be made accessible. And that idea was to produce documents which can be transformed into different formats, so making it much more widely adaptable, and again, modular and extensible, that it could be used in various ways. They also kind of created a holder for a Part B, a distribution framework, but as they were doing their work in the revision, they were also evaluating EPUB 3, and in fact, as Bill mentioned, actively working in the EPUB 3 work to include the accessible requirements. So lately, what they had done was making sure that their requirements in DAISY for rendering, processing, making sure that audio and text synchronization was there, and the integration of text-to-speech markup was present in EPUB 3. So Part A, the authoring and interchange framework, was available last year for a draft standard for trial usage. That's the DSFTU designation that we've got at NISO. It goes out for trial use, and this was available for trial use for 6 months last year. And then I was not at NISO until the middle of that. I joined NISO in May 2001, so I joined right in the middle of their trial usage. But the reviewers for that were the DAISY 2 pipeline group, different representatives from the U.S. Department of Education, National Instructional Materials. They all tested out Part A and brought in comments, and then the working group undertook to address those comments in another revision of the standard in late last year. Around the same time, that was when EPUB 3 became available. Bill, what was the date for EPUB 3? Late September?
Yeah, it was at Frankfurt Book Fair.
That's right. So September, October. So as EPUB 3 was becoming officially available, was around the same time that the working group really formally decided that it was best to drop the Part B work in favor of EPUB 3, that EPUB 3 did meet all of the requirements that were needed by DAISY. And then around the beginning of this year, the working group, also in discussions with NISO, said, well, we've got this new revision, and we're going to be calling it the Authoring and Interchange Framework for Adaptive XML Publishing, and it's really quite new and different. It is a revision of DAISY, but it's got a lot that sets it apart, and it will take a while for those entities who are using DAISY 3 to make a change to this new standard. So we don't want to drop the old DAISY 3, it's still important that it remain available and viable. So the working group recommended to NISO that Z39.86 DAISY 3 be reaffirmed, and that their new document, the Authoring and Interchange Framework for Adaptive XML Publishing, be designated a new standard, a new standalone standard. So NISO, in conjunction with our Content and Collection Management Topic Committee, which is a group of leaders who helped to approve materials, approved that, and these two things have gone to their respective voting pools. As I mentioned, DAISY 3 was reaffirmed, and ANSI has approved that reaffirmation, so that's official as of April. And the new standard is out to its voting pool now. The vote will close next Wednesday. Following that, we'll be in conversations with ANSI to formally designate that as an ANSI NISO standard. So look for that press release coming hopefully pretty soon, probably early July, I think. So I just have a few more slides about EPUB 3 and accessibility in particular, and really it's simply a plug for looking at EPUB 3 in conjunction with making sure that your files are accessible. And there's a number of different aspects that need to be considered when considering accessibility. So the accessibility community needs to be involved. There need to be standards and guidelines. No less important than standards themselves are guidelines and recommendations on how to apply the standards. Sample code to help implementers implement the requirements. For accessibility, validation tools and checkers. Math support, I know this was an important part of EPUB 3. George talks about it quite a lot, making sure that textbooks can be used by those who need to be able to handle these things. Beautiful user interfaces, that's important for print disabled as well. It's just in a different way. The user interface is also necessary. And making sure that there's easy ways to purchase content for those people who aren't able to otherwise in a non-accessible way. There's a number of guidelines specifically regarding accessibility in EPUB 3 that are available, and this was an important role for the DAISY Consortium in its input into EPUB 3. There is an O'Reilly guide specifically talking about how to implement EPUB 3 for accessible requirements, and a forum on the IDPF site that discusses these things and where questions can be posed. I think these are the same sample files that Bill was mentioning in his talk. The DAISY Consortium collaborated with IDPF to create content samples and share them, and these are accessible and are available at the same place that Bill was mentioning. And also, DAISY Consortium is fully committed to working with IDPF. I guess I'd say more than fully committed. They are many of the same people, many of the same skill sets, particularly George and Marcus, as Marcus is the CTO for both IDPF and DAISY now. And DAISY is continuing to monitor development of accessibility in the EPUB check tool, and working with creating validators for EPUB and making sure that they're participating in all of the EPUB initiatives to make sure these things are taking place. And Readium is one of them. I think you also mentioned Readium as well. Just a few more ongoing developments. I think there's still some outstanding work regarding graphical content. So images that are included in files, how can these be made accessible to the print and reading disabled? There's a specific project that's paying attention to that. That's called the Diagram Project. And there's more information at the URL listed. And I think there'll be more coming out from that group in the near future. DAISY, as I mentioned, is the maintenance agency for DAISY 3 and will be the maintenance agency for Z39.98, the new standard. And they are continuing to support the old standards as well. So although these are, I can't say DAISY 3 is deprecated just yet because we did just reaffirm it. People who are implementing DAISY are encouraged to take a look at the new standards and start to see how their systems can address those requirements in the future. Some DAISY tools to help in creating accessible multimedia, and other tools to create automated production of accessible materials. And these slides are all available, these links are available simply from the DAISY website, which is daisy.org. And George also gave me some slides on DAISY on mobile devices. So to say that there's more and more mobile applications for reading DAISY books on mainstream devices, like the Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and so on. And they've got an article about this kind of material, listing how to make these books available on these. Some specific portable DAISY players, I think these are primarily in use in certain populations, simply lists a number of hardware devices for these. BookSense, Victor, ReaderStream, Olympus, Classmate readers. Although I would expect that now more and more people are looking for more mainstream kinds of hardware. And there's just a number of legacy DAISY players. This standard's been around since 1996, so quite a number of these. And then more recently, we've seen some more software DAISY players, so specific downloads that can be used to support these. Read Here, Ida Reader, Book Wizard Reader. DAISY also undertakes, I guess, review of mainstream reading systems to see how natively they support accessibility. And as Bill mentioned, Kindle does not natively support EPUB. Nook is working on improving accessibility, and Adobe Digital Editions does support eBook. So where these are available, and they're also incorporating accessibility features of EPUB 3, they will be available for that. And this is the DAISY website, daisy.org, and its goal is to enrich accessible reading experience for everybody, and it goes beyond distinct population. I think we all really know that there's all kinds of areas where having digital books available in a text and voice form makes material much more accessible to all kinds of populations, and that's the endeavor of the DAISY Consortium, to make all publications accessible to everyone. And that's the end of my slides, and thank you very much.